The helicopter blades sliced through the desert air as the team prepared for insertion into hostile territory. Lieutenant Sarah Chen adjusted her medical kit one final time, running through the mental checklist that had become second nature after 4 tours of duty. The other members of SEAL Team 7 sat in focused silence, their faces painted with determination and the weight of the mission ahead. 2 minutes out. The pilot's voice crackled through their headsets. Sarah looked around at her teammates. These were men she had served with for over 2 years. Warriors who had seen the worst of combat and emerged stronger. Yet none of them knew the full extent of what she had endured before joining their ranks. To them, she was simply their medic. Skilled, reliable, and unshakable. Under pressure. The mission was supposed to be routine by SEAL standards. Extract a high-value target from a compound deep in enemy territory, gather intelligence, and get out clean. Sarah had participated in dozens of similar operations, always focused on keeping her team alive and healthy. Her role was to patch them up, keep them fighting, and ensure everyone made it home. The compound appeared below them, a cluster of sand-colored buildings surrounded by high walls. Intelligence indicated minimal resistance, but Sarah knew better than to trust such assessments completely. In her experience, the missions labeled as routine often became anything but. As they fast-roped down from the helicopter, Sarah felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that came with stepping into danger. Her boots hit the ground with practiced silence, and she immediately took position with her team. The night vision goggles revealed a world painted in green shadows, every corner potentially hiding an enemy. The team moved with precision through the compound's outer perimeter. Sarah stayed close to the center of the formation, ready to respond to any medical emergency, while maintaining situational awareness of the tactical situation unfolding around her. Her M4 carbine was loaded and ready, though she hoped she wouldn't need to use it. The first sign of trouble came when they breached the main building. Instead of finding their target waiting in the designated room, they walked into a carefully prepared ambush. Muzzle flashes erupted from multiple positions as enemy fighters opened fire from concealed positions throughout the structure. "Contact front!" shouted Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, the team leader, as he returned fire. The SEALs immediately shifted into combat formation. But the enemy had planned well. Crossfire came from 3 different directions, pinning down the team in the central courtyard. Sarah found cover behind a concrete pillar, her heart racing as bullets cracked overhead and ricocheted off the walls around them. "Chen, we need you over here," Rodriguez called out as one of the team members. Petty Officer Jackson stumbled and fell behind a low wall. Sarah didn't hesitate. Despite the intense gunfire, she sprinted across the open courtyard in a low crouch, her medical bag clutched tightly in her hands. Bullets kicked up dust around her feet, but her focus remained entirely on reaching her wounded teammate. Jackson had taken a round to the thigh, blood seeping through his uniform pants. Sarah immediately went to work, applying pressure to the wound while keeping her head down as more shots rang out overhead. Her training took over completely. Assess, treat, stabilize. "How bad is it, Doc?" Jackson asked through gritted teeth. "You'll live, but you're not going to be doing any dancing for a while," Sarah replied, working quickly to apply a field dressing and inject morphine for the pain. As she worked, the firefight intensified around them. The enemy had superior numbers and knew the terrain, but the SEALs had superior training and equipment. Slowly, methodically, they began to gain the upper hand through coordinated fire and movement. It was during this phase of the battle that disaster struck. A rocket-propelled grenade screamed across the courtyard, impacting against the wall where several team members had taken cover. The explosion was deafening, filling the air with concrete dust and debris. When the dust settled, Sarah heard the calls for help. 2 more SEALs were down, and one of them was in bad shape. She grabbed her medical kit and rushed toward the sound of agonized groaning, sliding on her knees to reach Petty Officer Martinez. The sight that greeted her was sobering. Martinez had caught shrapnel in his chest and abdomen, with blood pooling beneath him. His breathing was labored, and his face was pale with shock. This was a life-threatening injury that required immediate intervention. Sarah worked with methodical precision, establishing an airway, controlling bleeding, and starting an IV line for fluid replacement. Around her, the battle continued to rage, but she blocked out everything except the patient in front of her. This was what she had trained for, what she lived for, saving lives when death seemed certain. "Stay with me, Martinez," she said calmly while working. "Your wife is going to want you home for your anniversary next month." As she stabilized Martinez enough for evacuation, another explosion rocked the compound. This one was much closer, and Sarah felt the concussive force knock her sideways. Pain shot through her left shoulder and arm as debris rained down around them. Looking down, she saw blood spreading across her uniform sleeve. Shrapnel from the blast had torn through her shoulder and upper arm, causing significant damage. The irony wasn't lost on her. The medic had become a patient. Despite the injury, Sarah continued working on Martinez. The pain was intense, but she had experienced worse and survived. Her left arm was nearly useless now, but she could still function with her right hand and her extensive knowledge of trauma medicine. Rodriguez appeared at her side, having fought his way across the courtyard. "Chen, you're hit bad. We need to get you out of here." "Not until Martinez is stable," Sarah replied firmly, continuing to monitor his vital signs while applying pressure to her own wound with her free hand. The team leader looked at her with a mixture of admiration and concern. In all his years of service, he had rarely seen such dedication under fire. Most people, even highly trained SEALs, would be focused on their own survival after taking such a significant injury. "The extraction bird is 2 minutes out," Rodriguez informed her. "Can you move?" Sarah nodded, though she could feel herself becoming weaker from blood loss. "Get Martinez on the first bird. I can wait for the second extraction if needed." Just, Las. "Like hell you can," Rodriguez replied. "You're both getting on that helicopter." The sound of rotor blades grew louder as their extraction arrived. The remaining team members laid down suppressive fire, while Sarah and the other wounded were moved toward the landing zone. Despite her injury, Sarah continued to monitor Martinez's condition and provide medical guidance to the other SEALs helping with his care. The helicopter evacuation was a blur of noise, pain, and controlled chaos. Sarah found herself strapped into a seat next to Martinez, still keeping pressure on his wounds while a crew member worked to stop her own bleeding. The morphine they had given her for pain was starting to take effect, making everything feel distant and dreamlike. As the helicopter lifted off and banked toward the safety of their forward operating base, Sarah allowed herself to relax slightly for the first time since the mission began. Martinez was stable, Jackson's leg wound was manageable, and the rest of the team had made it out alive. Despite the ambush and the intense fighting, they had accomplished their primary objective, bringing everyone home. Rodriguez leaned over to check on her condition. "How are you holding up, Doc?" "Been better. Been worse," Sarah replied with a weak smile. "How's the team?" "Thanks to you, everyone's going to make it home to their families," Rodriguez answered. "That was some incredible work back there under fire." Sarah closed her eyes and let the helicopter's vibrations lull her toward unconsciousness. She had done her job, just as she had done countless times before, in situations that would break most people. What her teammates didn't know was that this mission, as intense as it had been, was far from the most challenging situation she had ever faced. The helicopter touched down at the base medical facility, and Sarah was immediately transferred to a gurney. As the medical team wheeled her toward the trauma bay, she could hear Rodriguez coordinating the care for Martinez and updating their commanding officer on the mission status. Everything became a haze of bright lights, medical equipment, and urgent voices, as the doctors worked to assess and treat her injuries. The shrapnel had done significant damage to her shoulder, requiring immediate surgery to repair torn muscles and remove metal fragments embedded deep in the tissue. As the anesthesia took hold and consciousness faded away, Sarah's last thought was about her team. They were safe, they were alive, and that was all that mattered. The injury to her own body was simply the price of doing the job she had sworn to do. protecting those who served alongside her. Sarah woke up in the base hospital 3 days later, her left arm immobilized in a complex sling system that kept her shoulder completely still. The surgery had taken over 4 hours, but the doctors had successfully removed all the shrapnel and repaired the damaged muscle tissue. Recovery would be long and challenging, but she would eventually regain full use of her arm. The first visitors were her teammates from SEAL Team 7. Rodriguez, Jackson, and the others filed into her room with the mixture of relief and awkwardness that comes when warriors visit wounded comrades. They brought news that Martinez was recovering well and would be flown back to the States for continued treatment. "How long before you're cleared for duty?" asked Petty Officer Williams, one of the team's demolitions experts. "Doc says at least 3 months of physical therapy," Sarah replied, adjusting her position carefully to avoid aggravating the surgical site. "Could be longer, depending on how the healing goes." "Well, the team won't be the same without our guardian angel," Rodriguez said with genuine warmth. "Command is already asking about your replacement for the next deployment." Sarah felt a pang of disappointment. Missing a deployment meant letting down her team, the people who depended on her skills and experience. But she also knew that returning to combat duty before being fully healed would put everyone at risk. Over the following weeks, as Sarah progressed through the early stages of recovery, she found herself with more time to think than she had experienced in years. The constant pace of training, missions, and preparation that defined SEAL life had been replaced by physical therapy sessions, medical appointments, and long stretches of enforced rest. The base psychiatrist, Dr. Amanda Foster, made regular visits to check on Sarah's mental health. It was standard protocol for anyone injured in combat. But Dr. Foster seemed particularly interested in Sarah's background and previous experiences. "Tell me about what motivated you to become a SEAL medic," Dr. Foster asked during one of their sessions. Sarah considered the question carefully. The full truth was complicated, involving events that she had never shared with anyone in her current unit. "I wanted to serve my country and use my medical training to save lives in the most challenging environments possible." "That's a textbook answer, Doctor," Foster observed gently. "What I'm really asking about is your personal journey. Your service record shows some interesting gaps before you joined the teams." The comment made Sarah uncomfortable. She had worked hard to build a reputation based on her current performance, not on her past experiences. The idea that someone was digging into her history felt invasive and potentially threatening to the professional relationships she had built. "Everyone has a past, Doc. What matters is what you do with your present." Dr. Foster made some notes and shifted to discussing Sarah's current emotional state and progress through recovery. But the seed had been planted. Someone was looking into her background, and that could lead to revelations she wasn't ready to share. As Sarah's physical therapy intensified, she began spending time in the base gym during off-peak hours. The shoulder injury limited many of her usual workout routines, but she could still maintain her cardiovascular fitness and work on other muscle groups. It was during one of these sessions that she encountered Master Chief Petty Officer James Harrison, the senior enlisted advisor for the SEAL teams at their base. Master Chief Harrison was a legend in the special operations community. With over 20 years of service and multiple combat deployments, he commanded respect from officers and enlisted personnel alike. Sarah had interacted with him only briefly during her time with the team, usually during formal briefings or ceremonies. "Chen, how's the recovery coming along?" Harrison asked as he finished his own workout. "Ahead of schedule, Master Chief. Should be cleared for light duty in about 6 weeks." Harrison nodded approvingly, then seemed to study her more carefully. "Mind if I ask you something? Off the record?" Sarah felt her guard go up immediately. In her experience, when senior leadership wanted to have off-the-record conversations, it usually meant trouble was brewing. "Of course, Master Chief. There's been some chatter about your background. Nothing official. Just curiosity from some of the guys who've served in different theaters. Your name keeps coming up in conversations about operations that supposedly never happened." The blood drained from Sarah's face. This was exactly what she had been afraid of. Her past catching up with her current life. She had worked so hard to build a new identity based on her medical skills and performance with SEAL Team 7. I'm not sure what you mean, Master Chief. Harrison's expression showed that he didn't believe her deflection, but he also seemed to understand her reluctance to discuss whatever she was hiding. Look, Chen, I've been around long enough to recognize when someone has seen more action than their official record shows. Whatever you did before joining our team, it's made you into one hell of a medic and operator. Thank you, Master Chief. But here's the thing, Harrison continued. Secrets have a way of coming out, especially in our small community. It might be better if the story came from you, rather than from someone else digging around. After Harrison left, Sarah sat alone in the gym, contemplating his words. She had spent 3 years building relationships with her current team, based on who she was now, not who she had been before. The thought of revealing her past felt like betraying the trust and friendship she had worked so hard to earn. That evening, Sarah called her older brother David, one of the few people who knew her complete history. David had served 2 tours as an Army Ranger before transitioning to civilian life and starting a family. He was the only person she felt comfortable discussing her dilemma with. They're going to find out eventually, Sarah, David said over the secure phone line. You know how small the special operations community is. Someone, somewhere, is going to make the connection. But what if it changes how they see me? What if they think I was holding back or didn't trust them enough to share? Or what if they realize they've been serving alongside someone even more badass than they already thought? David countered. You're not the same person who went through what you went through. You've grown, you've healed, and you've proven yourself over and over again. Sarah knew her brother was right, but the fear of judgment remained strong. Her past contained events that were classified at the highest levels, operations that most people would never believe had actually happened. Revealing those experiences would require official clearance and could potentially compromise ongoing missions or operations. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor to Sarah's room. Colonel Patricia Manning, the commanding officer for special operations at their base, appeared during morning rounds with Dr. Foster and Master Chief Harrison in tow. Lieutenant Chen, Colonel Manning said formally, I hope you don't mind the intrusion, but we need to discuss some recent developments regarding your service record. Sarah's heart sank. This was it. The moment she had been dreading since joining the SEALs. Someone had finally connected the dots and discovered the classified operations she had participated in before her current assignment. Ma'am, there's been a request from higher headquarters for clarification on some gaps in your official biography, Colonel Manning continued. Specifically, there are questions about an 18-month period before you joined SEAL Team 7, where your location and activities are listed as classified. Dr. Foster stepped forward. Sarah, we're not here to interrogate you or put you in a difficult position, but there have been inquiries from other units, and it's clear that whatever you did during that time period has attracted attention. Master Chief Harrison added, The word is getting out anyway, Chen. Some of the guys have been asking questions, and eventually, someone's going to piece together enough information to figure it out. Colonel Manning looked directly at Sarah with an expression that mixed authority with genuine concern. What we're offering is the opportunity to control your own narrative. Tell your story on your terms, to people who already respect and trust you. Sarah felt trapped between her desire for privacy and the reality that her secret was already starting to unravel. The people in this room represented the chain of command and support system that had become her new family. If she was going to trust anyone with her complete story, it should be them. Ma'am, much of what happened during that period is still classified. I'm not sure what I'm legally authorized to share. Colonel Manning smiled slightly. That's already been addressed. I have authorization from the appropriate agencies to discuss your previous assignment within certain parameters. The moment of truth had arrived. Sarah took a deep breath and made the decision that would change how everyone saw her. What do you want to know, ma'am? Let's start with why an experienced SEAL medic was operating under a different identity in some of the most dangerous places on Earth, Colonel Manning said gently. For the first time in 3 years, Sarah began to tell the complete story of who she really was. and what she had done before joining SEAL Team 7. It was a story that would shock her teammates and change forever how they understood the quiet, competent medic who had been saving their lives. Sarah looked around the room at the faces of people who had become her second family. Colonel Manning, Master Chief Harrison, and Dr. Foster. These were individuals she trusted with her life on a regular basis. If anyone deserved to know the truth about her past, it was them. Before I joined SEAL Team 7, I wasn't Sarah Chen, she began slowly. My name was Sarah Mitchell, and I was part of a joint CIA Special Operations Unit that officially never existed. Colonel Manning leaned forward slightly. You're talking about the Ghost Protocol operations. Yes, ma'am. For 18 months, I operated under deep cover in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and several other countries that we were not supposed to have personnel in. My cover was as a Doctors Without Borders medical volunteer, but my real mission was to provide medical support for extremely sensitive operations. Dr. Foster looked intrigued. What kind of operations required that level of cover? Sarah paused, choosing her words carefully, despite having clearance to share. Raids on high-value targets that could never be officially acknowledged. Assassinations of terrorist leaders that had to look like accidents or medical emergencies. Extraction of assets from situations where any American military presence would have created international incidents. The weight of her words settled over the room. Master Chief Harrison had seen extensive combat, but even he seemed impressed by the scope of what Sarah was describing. The medical cover was perfect because it gave me access to places and people that traditional operators couldn't reach, Sarah continued. I could treat injured civilians during the day and then participate in classified operations at night. I saved lives in refugee camps and took lives in terrorist strongholds, sometimes within hours of each other. Colonel Manning studied her carefully. That kind of psychological pressure would break most people. How did you handle the duality? Honestly, ma'am, I didn't handle it well. By the end of those 18 months, I was struggling with severe PTSD, identity confusion, and a complete inability to distinguish between my cover life and my real life. The agency pulled me out and spent 6 months helping me remember who I actually was. Dr. Foster made some notes. That explains some of the psychological profiles I've been reviewing. Your stress responses and coping mechanisms are far more advanced than someone with your official service record should possess. Sarah nodded. After the psychological rehabilitation, I was given a choice. Also, placed in supported. I could return to CIA operations with a new identity and assignment. Or, I could transition to conventional military service with a cleaned service record. I chose the SEALs because I wanted to serve my country in a way that didn't require me to lie about who I was every single day. But you've been lying to us for 3 years, Master Chief Harrison observed, though his tone was more curious than accusatory. Not lying exactly. Everything I've told you about my medical training, my motivations, and my commitment to the team has been completely true. I just haven't shared the full extent of my previous experience. Colonel Manning stood and walked to the window, looking out at the base where Sarah's current teammates were probably conducting training exercises. The reason this has all come to light is because some of your former CIA colleagues have been asking questions. Apparently, there's been discussion about bringing you back for a special assignment. Sarah felt her stomach drop. Ma'am? A high-value target has been located in a region where conventional military operations aren't politically feasible. They need someone with your specific combination of medical expertise, combat experience, and ability to operate under deep cover. With respect, ma'am, I'm not that person anymore. The psychological cost of living a double life for 18 months nearly destroyed me. I won't do it again. Dr. Foster looked up from her notes. Sarah, there's something else you should know. The reason Master Chief Harrison and I have been so interested in your background is because your current teammates have been asking questions. Word about your performance during the recent mission has spread throughout the special operations community. Sarah's heart raced. What kind of questions? Master Chief Harrison answered. Questions about how a medic could maintain that level of calm under fire while treating multiple casualties and managing her own serious injury. Questions about why your tactical awareness and weapon handling are far superior to what would be expected from someone whose primary role is medical support. They think you've been holding back, Colonel Manning added, turning back from the window. Some of them are wondering if you've been hiding advanced combat training or previous special operations experience. The irony wasn't lost on Sarah. She had been trying to avoid drawing attention to her past, but her inability to completely suppress her advanced training had created exactly the kind of curiosity she was hoping to avoid. "What happens now?" Sarah asked. Colonel Manning returned to her seat. "That depends largely on what you want to happen. The CIA request for your services can be declined. Your current military commitment takes precedence. But the questions from your teammates aren't going away." Dr. Foster leaned forward. "Sarah, in my professional opinion, keeping this secret is causing you more psychological stress than revealing it would. You've been carrying the weight of your past experiences alone, and that's not sustainable long-term." Master Chief Harrison nodded in agreement. "These guys have earned the right to know who they're really serving alongside. They trust you with their lives, and they deserve to know that you have the experience and skills to justify that trust." Sarah considered their words carefully. For 3 years, she had been terrified that revealing her past would change how her teammates saw her. But now she was beginning to understand that hiding her past was actually preventing them from fully understanding and appreciating her capabilities. "If I tell them, it has to be my decision and my timeline," Sarah said finally. "Absolutely," Colonel Manning agreed. "But I would recommend doing it soon. The alternative is that they piece together enough fragments on their own to create a version of the story that might be less accurate or more dramatic than the reality." That evening, Sarah sent word to her teammates that she wanted to meet with them the following day. The message requested that the entire SEAL Team 7 gather in the team room for what she described as important information regarding my background and capabilities. The night was long and restless. Sarah rehearsed various ways of explaining her past, trying to find words that would convey the truth without overwhelming her teammates or making them question her loyalty to their current unit. The next afternoon, the entire team assembled in their secure briefing room. Rodriguez, Jackson, Williams, Martinez, who had returned from medical leave, and the other members of SEAL Team 7 took their usual seats, their expressions showing curiosity mixed with concern. "Before I begin," Sarah said, standing at the front of the room, "I want you all to know that everything I'm about to tell you has been cleared by higher command and is being shared because I trust you completely." She took a deep breath and began the story that would change everything. 3 years ago, when I joined this team, I told you that I wanted to use my medical skills to serve my country in the most challenging environments possible. That was true, but it wasn't the complete truth. For the next hour, Sarah walked her teammates through her previous life as a deep cover operative, the psychological challenges of living with multiple identities, and the advanced combat training that supplemented her medical expertise. The room was completely silent throughout her presentation. These were men who had seen incredible things and heard unbelievable stories. But Sarah's experience was beyond what any of them had imagined. When she finished, Staff Sergeant Rodriguez was the first to speak. "So, when you performed medical care under fire during our last mission, that wasn't just training and natural ability. It was training, natural ability, and 18 months of experience treating combat casualties in situations where failure meant not just losing a patient, but blowing a cover that could compromise national security." Petty Officer Williams shook his head in amazement. "Jesus, Chen, and here we thought you were just naturally good under pressure." Martinez, whose life Sarah had saved during the ambush, looked at her with a new level of respect. "All this time, we've been protecting our medic. Turns out our medic has been protecting us." Jackson, his leg still healing from his injury, asked the question that was on everyone's mind. "Why didn't you tell us before?" "Why?" Sarah met his eyes directly. "Because I wanted you to trust me. based on who I am now, not on what I did before. I wanted to earn my place on this team through my current performance, not through my previous credentials." End quote. I would some of one of the pressed. I would seen 73 news. Central subsis. End quote. Master Chief Harrison, who had been quietly observing from the back of the room, stepped forward. "What Lieutenant Chen is telling you is that she chose to serve alongside you as an equal teammate, rather than as someone whose experience placed her above you in the unofficial hierarchy." Rodriguez stood up and extended his hand to Sarah. "Well, I can tell you that knowing this doesn't change how we feel about you as a teammate. If anything, it makes us feel even more fortunate to have you watching our backs." One by one, each member of the team stepped forward to shake Sarah's hand or offer words of support and understanding. The revelation hadn't driven them apart. It had brought them closer together by eliminating the last barrier between them. As the meeting concluded and the team members began to file out, Martinez paused at the door. "Chen, can I ask you something?" "Of course. During that firefight, when you were treating me while injured yourself, you seemed completely calm, almost like you'd been in worse situations before." Sarah smiled slightly. "I had been in worse situations before, but what kept me calm wasn't just my previous experience. It was knowing that I couldn't let down the people who had become my family." Martinez nodded and headed toward the door, then turned back one more time. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you chose us over whatever fancy CIA assignment they probably offered you." As Sarah cleaned up the briefing room, she felt a weight lifting from her shoulders that she hadn't even realized she'd been carrying. For the first time in 3 years, she could be completely herself around the people who mattered most to her. Colonel Manning appeared in the doorway. "How did it go?" "Better than I hoped, ma'am. I think keeping the secret was harder than sharing it." "There's something else you should know," Colonel Manning said with a slight smile. "Word of your background has reached some very senior levels of command. There's discussion about creating a new type of unit that combines medical expertise with advanced special operations capabilities." Sarah looked up with interest. "What kind of unit?" "The kind that would allow you to use all of your skills and experience without having to choose between your medical identity and your operational background. Think about it." As Colonel Manning left, Sarah realized that her story was far from over. The revelation of her past hadn't ended her career with SEAL Team 7. It had opened up possibilities she had never imagined. For the first time since her CIA days, she was excited about what the future might hold.